Now that we've heard all about the Mexican election, or we're going to pretend like we heard that in the break between segments, and pretend that Dark Wolf's done with it, and hopefully he will be done with it. But
Well,
uh,
they both think they won.
now that we now that we've done done that, um, I do want to bring up foreign recruits because we've been kind of dancing around them this entire episode, and I think that we need to talk about them to bring it all together. So, foreign
Uh,
recruits in this edition are they were already good in 5. In this edition they're insanely even better. You have more money and resources to make them, and the indies are more powerful, so recruiting more parties with your foreign recruits is better. So especially the best one is anyone with a foreign recruit scout. That is the top. That means you are guaranteed scouts, and I have seen people who will either be screwed out of scouts or pretend they're screwed out of scouts. So the foreign recruit scouts let you
I'm gonna be honest,
actually get
the
a
latter is more common.
right. Yeah, you're like, oh, I didn't have that many scout provinces, and it's like you could have been making scouts, but
I would say make a naked fort just for scouts if you don't have scouts. Or like the honest like play is probably like if it doesn't affect your build and your timing, like turn 8 or whatever, maybe you make 2 scouts for like 3 turns, so you at
listen,
least have 6.
you can always summon the very inoffensive and generic and not at all
Shadow
racialized
Servant.
shadow servant. Yes.
Bro, that shit's so
Definitely his
stupid.
name is Shadow Servant. Definitely was nothing before. Clearly. Right, Elementary? Yeah, yeah.
so
Look, it's changed. Look at it right there. It's
I
something
would just
different.
like to remind everyone that Illwinter is the company that made Japanese people have one less HP, have the only black
Listen
race
here,
to use
Slander Boy.
I
ultrarifles,
Hey,
th-
they
and
might stop updating if you say that. Stop it.
they fixed that. They have fixed the racism bonus, but yeah. So foreign recruit scouts are the top foreign recruit in my opinion, and they let you decide without having to look around your fucking land for a scout province w- when you want to start gathering that information on your neighbors, which is very valuable early. After that, you have foreign recruit troops, which are more of an early game thing because they help you expand. And the nations with good foreign recruit troops are that is another huge boon because you just expand more than you otherwise would have. You have more parties and you have more guys to defend your territory after it's done. So that's another huge. Those are pretty big in the early game, and then teching in the mid game. Foreign recruit mages, as we have seen, like
Well, in some
infrastructure
unique scenarios.
yeah, infrastructure is more expensive now. So if you have a foreign recruit mage that does not have a research malice, then that lab and that foreign recruit enable you to tech, especially if you have cheap labs. But even if you don't, that enables a level of teching that wouldn't have been that much more in 5, but now in 6 is just rather absurd. It enables you to say go in after you've had one war. Let's say you're on 30 provinces, 35 provinces, and some nations can just take that and tech their way all the way up to level 9s, which might have been possible in 5, but you generally wouldn't get away with it. But now in 6 I've seen it.
You
I've seen
definitely
some
have to
yeah.
keep an eye on it. So I definitely think there's maybe more nations like that have the scariest like Nazca issue where it's like if you see them early, you ain't letting that shit slide
Right.
because if you do, you're gonna regret it and you're gonna hate yourself 2 months later because you let them tech or you let them build their forts and it's like now you have to
Yeah.
deal with 10,000 skeletons. Now you have to deal with you know this is why you attack these guys. They're not very good early. Granted, Sclary is better than Nazca early. Lucid, no matter what Lucid puts out, with 250 gems, and he's trying to convince people NAFTA is not like the best nation. You still just run at that guy. It's
yeah. And guess
um,
what? Guess what? If some dude starts buying and boosters on a nation like Nazca, you prioritize them even more because there's some person dumb enough in your game to sell them.
That's true. And so one thing I did notice is that last game, this is no longer the case. Last game, if you noticed around mid game, you noticed a MA Ulm. that seemed to not be doing anything, that was actually a pretty big a red flag because it generally means they're just teching up to lanterns and then they're going to be in the late mid games before anyone else is, and then they're going to start making plays and you're not going to have the research to necessarily deal with
Yeah.
them. But that's no longer the case because the lantern is now construction 7, so it's
There
a
might
No
lot.
one
still
took
be
his
some.
fun.
Yeah, it's a
There
lot.
might. I don't know what the timing is, like how it changed.
It's a lot harder to get a 7 into other 7s than it is to get a 6 into other 7s. And 7 construction is not very defensive of tech. So it's a lot harder for Ulm to
Uh,
do that now, but I think other nations, man being a big one, as there is a glamour booster,
that glamour research booster
an
is
air
crazy.
booster, and a nature booster. Not that I'd want to spend gems on the nature one, but because now man, it has foreign recruit mages. They're not that great at research. It has monks that are Foreignrec that also add research, and it has all these boosters, and it has additional magic scales, and it has a bespoke communion. If you see a man in the mid game that's kind of just sitting there, like you don't know what they're doing, that doesn't. They're probably not potatoing. They're probably teching up.
You know
Nabob.
what's really great about people playing man that you have not considered HP?
Hmm.
So generally, in Dominions 5, there was this huge issue with nations like Vanheim, where Vanheim has a lot of potential to be scary. But you know what players play those nations? The biggest peanuts. And you know what players are now playing man? The biggest peanuts. So to
Exactly.
me, it's a W across the board because the biggest peanut players.
W's in chat. W's in chat.
Because that the man player, oh, I'm gonna make Knights of Athlon and elites, and I'm gonna have no ability to reign because I'm peanut.
Well,
He's gonna be playing them, so I don't care too much generally. But that's like metagame bullshit. So
yeah.
Uh,
Listen,
That's
if
actually a good segue to an interesting topic
all right,
that
no, no,
isn't
no,
the
no, no.
Mexican elections.
all right, all right.
Instead, what
Shut
we are
up!
going to talk
Shut up! Shut
about
up! Shut up!
is
All right,
trying
we're
to
censoring you. We're censoring you.
No, no.
analyzing player research and decisions. So, like, it's a very complex topic, but you can start it from the early game, which is
Oh,
always
I
remember that your opponent's doing something too.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was gonna say it's very easy to do in the to like kind of focus in. Oh, this is what they've got. This is what I'm doing. This should work. But it's very easy to forget that like every turn you're researching towards uh, alteration 7 for Marble Warriors. They are currently like they could be researching something too, right? Whether it's a counter or something completely different. For all you know, they're researching up to construction 7, and you're like, oh, they didn't do anything, and then they have lanterns, and now they're in 9s, and you're still at 7s, right?
Right.
It's just super important to think about.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, certain nines are unbalanced, like a balance of demise, but maybe Ilwinter will wake up from their psychosis one of these days and their fear and that effect. But until then,
Oh.
these broken effects exist.
One.
Are you in fact trying to insinuate that construction 9 is not equal to any of the other 9s?
Yes.
That's crazy. Do you know how useful I find it when playing Dominions 6, the Dominions game that removed super commands and made thugs so much worse, and I cannot make a 20 gem AoE 1
Okay.
weapon?
Hold on. You you guys are
Sometimes,
you guys
sometimes I'm
are
even
I didn't
cap.
say
incapable.
any of this.
Listen, you guys are cap because let me tell you about
What
Construction 9.
artifact?
Like, listen, there are better 9s than Construction 9, but in defense of Construction 9, first of all, if you when you get to Construction 9, you get a bunch of shit instead of just one thing in the new system. I know the new system sucks and you shouldn't use it, but if you're using it, then Construction 9 gives you all the artifacts instead of just one thing. You get yearning artifacts, which means you can make them for cheaper some of the time. But importantly, when you look at Construction 9, and this is very boring, you'll notice a lot of really like interesting artifacts that are not worth their cost. But what you'll also notice is like there's a bunch of unique boosters that are relatively cheap that are just available at Construction 9, and that's kind of your prize for
Relatively
getting there
cheap.
first and bogarting it. So it's like, yeah, you can get this like Astral Blood book or something that's like fits in your misc slot. where you wouldn't normally be able to, and it gives you an extra booster that you normally wouldn't be able to take. So getting you like if you're in the late game, you can get there and you can get those extra boosters first, and then that sets you up to do other late game
Listen,
shit that you may not
I
have had
think it.
access
that may
to.
be true, but that is the most boring reason to go make a forge ever. Like,
I
think
think
about
it
it.
really depends what nation you are too. Like, do I give a single fuck if MA Ulm gets the 9 before me? Like, its magic diversity is crap, and
I mean,
you
yeah,
know,
if you
like,
are
like the context of who is there matters.
well, yeah, but I think it's more along the lines of who you are. Like if you have like three paths you care about, and you already have the ability before 9 to get as far up that path as you want to, then you're not gonna give a shit. But I noticed this playing Nidavanger. Nidavanger has a lot of paths that it cares about, and not a lot of ability to go up them. You know, it like granted, I don't think Const 9 is their main research, but it would have been fucking nice. like would
Yeah,
have
but like, but
would have
like,
been
like, listen,
nice
like,
to have all
but
that
that's a
shit.
9.
Yeah.
It is
Like,
a
you could just go
9.
up con.
So while we are talking about late game bullshit, how about we talk about last in the episode? We talk about the news item, the mega communion, the
Oh, I
tur.
wanted to talk about right back to foreign
Wait,
recruits.
Oh,
wait,
go
what do you
go
want to
ahead.
touch on?
Yeah, go back to foreign recruits.
Okay, so I just want to make this point. This probably doesn't come up unless you have like a tempo strategy for the early game, but I, I want to point out that sometimes recruiting indies, if you have like RNG spawns where you have like a forest or something, it has like a even like an indie heavy infantry, and you can link that with a like kind of I don't know how to explain this, but I'm gonna try it. If you can link it to where you have a commander who walks around and picks up these units in kind of like a pack, like that's actually pretty good at creating parties. And I don't think a lot of people realize or do this. It's very extra and more micro, but I don't think it's bad either because it
Right.
can like you can do that if you RNG spawn like with a bunch of like if you can make like 5 or 6 or 7 infantry in a row, and all of a sudden he has a path of he's walking through 3 provinces, and then by the time he gets to the third province, he has a group of 30 or like 25. That's pretty good.
Right. Yeah,
So
because then you could just raid people with it. Yeah.
and you can split up that party because obviously depending on people's PD and if you're scouting, that party could be really useful, and you didn't have to use a fort to make those fuckers. You didn't have to, you just made them outside. You found them in
Right.
the wilderness and you gathered them together, and your merry band of Robin Hood raiders are going off. Or they can join an army. It's like
Right.
drafting a real nation. So I don't know if a lot of people think about it like the paths of setting up like almost little seeing if you have this ability in your empire, and you don't have to pick indie heavy infantry. You can pick whatever. It could be archers, or if you have a path that you notice that you can set up to do something, then go for it if it makes sense. And I just wanted to highlight it's like kind of niche tech, but it's also tech you can do. And I don't know. I wanted to highlight it regardless.
You're right, that's fair. You don't have to sit there making indies in a single province, then make the commander in that province, then wait 3 turns. You can have indies making in 3 provinces where the commander starts with one at one, goes to the next, picks up those, goes to the third, picks up those, and then has a full party. And then either repeating doing that or just cutting them off after he's walked through, and then you have your party.
You can
And
set up a process like a factory almost.
yeah,
It's just like it's little optimization, but I don't really see it at all. I've never
and
seen
of
a
and
YouTuber
of
do it.
course, and of course, like I've got to bring this up. I'm sure we covered it in our Dom 5 episode on indies, but yeah, if you notice someone's got like 1 PD in all their provinces or like 2 PD in all their provinces, like there's nothing wrong with like just embarrassing them by raiding them with deer tribe. like recruit 20 of the fuckers, the just shitty deer tribe infantry, and just run at them because they have no PD in their provinces, and you'll just make your money back.
I want to get to the point where we get to a level where the community just starts bringing extra indie commanders to threaten the ability of splitting instead of having one guy who is leading all the
Right,
troops, and
200 fuckers.
You know that they can't split because no one can lead him with the rest of his party.
Right.
And it's like, this is the most peanut play ever because you have made it easier for me to predict what you're doing because you cannot split. You know, maybe they're stealthing someone who can split. Oh, Soren, what if they're... They never do that. They never do. It doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter if they're a long-term player who's supposedly been playing for 6 years, that it doesn't come to their mind. You know, people are dead set in their habits and they don't even consider this stuff. So I wish one day we'll reach the point where people are actually playing mind games and actually using the strategic map to threaten things. But until then, it'll be probably
that's
unique
too
to it.
fancy for a Dominion player. Like, you got to think about it. These people have like no intent on interesting political situations. I instead prefer going to HP,
Listen,
being like, "Yo,
that's a little
you
too
about to be
elitist.
my boy? I'm gonna loot your ass." Ah,
You know, we're probably becoming out of time. I'm not trying to flame people in the audience, for the record. I'm just...
Hey, you are. No, just
in
What
fact,
do you mean?
uh,
No!
he's a fan of the
current
franchise.
current Dominions players, former Dominions players, current Dominions YouTubers, former Dominions YouTubers.
Listen, if you ever talk to me in a voice chat and I'm available, I'm not going to be rude to you.
He isn't rude. He's mean. Darkwood 2024.
Listen,
So
I
let's
am
so now
just a
that we've
goofball.
spiked that topic into the dust. If no one
He's
has
lighting a fire under himself.
any other fucking foreign
Yeah,
rec
fuck,
opinions,
what about-
let's talk about very quickly these
the new items?
these new turbo communions that are coming up, where now you can add units.
Ugh.
You can have someone who's casting either a global or a dispel, and you can add certain units that are astral mage priests, I believe, with the ability to get into these turbo, like, out of combat communions, and that essentially adds gems. Basically, it's the equivalent of adding levels, or it's 1 pearl per guy, I believe, who joins the communion. Something like that.
You could basically increase how many gems you overcast a global, more or less, if they have the trait, and to make it more secure. Essentially, if you're putting up a global or trying to push something off, which is super niche.
Let me actually look at this, and I believe Uruk got it, Pythium got it.
Yeah, Urmor got it.
Bro, have you ever thought about the name Uruk? Like, the way you pronounce it can make it either sound like a noble title or like you're trying not to vomit.
I can't wait till someone like Lola comes in and he's like, why does HP pronounce all the nations wrong? It's Abizia.
Pangaya.
Oh my
It's
God.
Abizia, you illiterate fuck!
I pronounce it wrong because I'm American, okay?
It's not
It's
Pangea,
Pangea.
it's Pangea.
Fuck off.
I'm from Pangea,
Ohio.
you bloody
What
Americans!
do you
You,
want from me?
you uneducated swine! Can't pronounce any of the names correct.
You just listen. You're flaming Lola because you miss him. I'm sorry.
Bro,
You're true. But also, he's a cranky old bastard who would make fun of us because we don't know how to pronounce any of the names.
So I do want to tell you very briefly about this fucking grand communicant ability. Like, it seems to have blown up the community, and everyone's freaking out about it.
Communicant ability.
What? We
What are you
just
talking about?
we just explained it.
It just popped up in the last patch. What are you, on Mars?
Go to Pythium.
Yeah.
Go to the Theurg. Click on Grand Communicant. It means you can have ritual communions to make your globals have more gems in them.
Oh my
You just
God.
add
Spells.
overcast. It's
Yeah.
not like anything fancy. It's like
This is boring. This is boring and dumb.
I thought it was going to be cool, and then it's
I
like,
thought it'd be
you
cool.
can add overcast
So
levels.
here's-
Can you imagine if you were like summoning like wyverns with like 500 mages worth or some shit, or springhawks?
That would have
that'd
been
be
so.
fucking hype.
That would have been so cool if
Dude,
they did
imagine-
that.
Yeah, imagine
Oh
if you
my
could
god, such a wasted opportunity. You're right.
Yeah, imagine if you could have a grand
Like if you just
conjuration where you
Oh.
added you added more monsters the
All
more
right,
mages
Dark
that
Wolf
were in
W.
it.
like I think you'd have to
Dark
make
Wolf
it
win!
cost a little bit more, right? But you can make this like really interesting gameplay situation where Pythium is just able to summon like shit tons of air and astral stuff
That'd be so
to kind of
fucking
play with
hype.
its
What
angelic.
if Illwinter actually did that? That would have been super cool.
That would have been awesome.
Anyway,
Like I'm sure you have to make a couple changes for balance, right?
right,
But it would
yeah.
be so cool from like a gameplay mechanism perspective to give a nation like the means or like the idea of do you spend your gems in battle or do you spend all your mage turns summoning a bunch of shit?
Now
You
you're
should
in
totally release this episode before the other ones, actually.
Mex territory. But yeah.
Well,
So
no, but what you do is you make it where the cost per mage, but like exponentially less. So by like mage 200, it barely matters.
right, this is flat. I do wanna bring up a positive about this because I actually think this is a positive change. I'm not like hype about it, but general,
No,
I want it.
it's good.
Listen, people
Wait,
kept
the shit
saying
hunter didn't get it.
people kept oh that's fucking piss. But people
The shit hunter.
kept calling Pythium weak in the late game
Isium?
for as far as I can tell, absolutely fucking no reason. Or just because they had like human chassis mages,
I think
they're like, oh, they're weak in the late game. They'll just get flames from the sky. They're just when they have this like automatic communion mechanic, and so now that people are freaking out about Grand Communicant, they'll stop calling them fucking weak in the late game finally, and so
I
now we
don't
won't have
know
to
if
deal
this
with this
will.
fucking Astral Nation being called weak in the late game. So I'm all for this change. I think it's a good
Listen,
one.
Marion doesn't get the new trait, and M.A. Micklin does. Illwinter, shit the bed.
You know, M.A. Micklin needed some help too, so good for them. I don't
Oh,
know,
my
like why did
HP! I need to torch all my skills and die to indie archers.
I had an entire fucking video on that shit.
That's the point.
Ooh.
Listen, stop torturing your scales as Micklin.
All right, so I think we've reached the final.
I think we're petering out.
Yeah, we're
Listen, the only thing that's petering out is your fucking attention span, Dark Wolf.
my attention span is petering out.
I
So
hope you eat spam.
anyway, that has been your
I'm gonna
Dominion
bully you
6
to
Rise
really.
of the Podcaster episode. I cannot tell you what we're going to do next time because I don't know what we're going to do next time. But future editor HP Munchcraft knows that we're going to be talking about build orders in the early game. I don't even know who is going to show up next time. So
I will bring Dark Wolf and we will create chaos! You're right, Dark Wolf!
Loot, mooch.
hopefully this hopefully I get this edited up in a time where this what we talk
Yeah,
about
I
is
don't think
still
you're
relevant,
that
but future editor HP Munchcraft knows that I will not be editing this in any kind of timely manner. This is like a month later. But
Yeah, why don't
yeah,
you edit this one first? Am I right?
first. Like
no,
unless you added another Rob.
I'm finishing the
guys.
Diplo one first.
Today-
Fuck.
Oh yes, Rob
about
Sears
Roman.
Diplo. Oh yes.
Okay, I got like 3 other videos I want to make and I
Bro.
haven't made. Ooh,
Hey
all right.
guys, today we're talking about Diplo and Joman and Age
Why
of
don't you make a
Empires.
video about how to break rocks?